But we just got to give the stream 1 second here. Just let everything breathe. Make sure that this stream is nice and stable all across the YouTube platform. Welcome in, Broncos country. It is schedule release night here on Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid. We have already known the who and the where for some time. Now we know the when. Some of the most anticipated matchups for the Denver Broncos this season. Russell Wilson returning to Denver. That game has already been revealed to be week 2. Also, we've got Sean Payton returning to the New Orleans Saints. If you guys want a sneak preview of the schedule, you can go check out a video that I released on the Syndicate earlier today, and we broke down the leaked schedule that got out a couple of hours ago. However, here on this stream, until the schedule gets officially released by the Broncos, we're going to go ahead and keep things under wraps and not spoil anything for those individuals who don't want it spoiled. We're going to go ahead and react to the video that the Broncos release in real time. You know that their social media team's been cooking up something good. They've completed their Office trilogy with Peyton Manning, so I'm really curious to see what they come up with this year. See if Bo Nix gets involved. I don't think Bo would want to be involved, though. Knowing him, he's all ball. He's all business. He doesn't really want to take time out of his day to film a schedule release video. We got Luca in the house. How you doing, Luca? Good to see you. We got Maverick in the house. We got Lafayette in the house. Good to see everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping matters, guys, before we get into things. If you could just do me a massive favor and leave a like on the stream, I would really appreciate it, as well as subscribe to the channel if you have yet to do so. We are trying to hit 3,500 subscribers by the end of May. I think that is very possible. We've gotten 300 subscribers over the past 2 weeks. I really think it's possible to get 200 over the next 2 weeks. So if you guys have yet to subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. It's free, it's easy, and it helps show your support for the channel. We got only Dubs in the house saying hopefully we have a good year, although I do want Russ to cook against us this year. I'm curious, why do you want Russ to cook against us? Just to prove the Broncos wrong, or what's your thought process behind that, Dubs? Let me know. Maverick says Chargers going to release a third anime video. I don't know, man. I think they might have played that card one too many times. You could go back to that anime well if you're the Chargers, but I hold their social media team to a really high standard because of all the really good stuff that they've put out over these last few years. I'm hoping maybe they try something different this year and still put their own unique spin on it, because they have full creative control to do whatever they want, and that's awesome. That really is. You don't see a lot of teams give their social media department that much creative control. The Green Bay Packers, for example, are a very conservative team when it comes to what their social media team can and can't put out. I'm really glad that teams like the Chargers are able to really showcase their personalities with their social media teams. We got DJ Capo in the house saying, "What up, G? How's it going, Broncos family? I'm ready for preseason to see what our new players will do and to watch our quarterback battle." Absolutely. That's going to be a really, really fun thing to monitor, especially as we get into training camp in July. That, for me, is when football season really begins, and we're just a little over 2 months away from training camp starting. I can't believe that the offseason is flying by so quick. We got JG in the house. Good to see you. We got John Dobbs saying, "Can't wait to see how these rookies develop and contribute." Only Dub says, "We root for the underdog around here. Don't like counting anyone out." Fair enough, fair enough. I'm wishing Russell Wilson nothing but success in Pittsburgh, just not week 2. We got Tez in the house. Good to see you, Tez. Hopefully you were doing well. We are about 6 minutes away from the Broncos officially releasing their schedule. Again, if you want a sneak preview, you can go check out my leaked schedule video on the Syndicate that I put out a couple of hours ago, if you guys want to see the schedule before the Broncos officially release it. But we're not going to spoil much here until they officially release it. I think that it's pretty common knowledge by now that the Seattle Seahawks are the Denver Broncos Week 1 opponent, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are the Denver Broncos Week 2 opponent. So I don't think I'm really spoiling anything there, but everything else beyond that, if you guys could just do me a favor and keep that all under wraps until it's officially announced and we show that schedule release video. Once that's done, we're going to do a deep dive into every single opponent the Denver Broncos are going to face this year, go over their key additions, their key departures, and just what I think the overall matchup between the Broncos and that team is going to look like. This is going to be a very long stream, so hopefully you guys are in for it and excited. We got Ben in the house saying, how's it going, Broncos country? Can we get a winning season this year? I sure hope so, man, and I actually think that this schedule may be a little bit easier for the Denver Broncos than some others may think. I think that the Denver Broncos actually have a fairly good chance of securing a winning season this year. We got Mickey Moto 100 in the house saying, I hope so. Again, I think that everybody is just finally hoping to get that monkey off of our back and secure our first winning season since 2016 and our first playoff appearance since 2015. If the New York Jets perform as advertised this year, then they'll break their playoff curse, meaning that if the Denver Broncos don't make the playoffs this year, they will likely have the longest playoff drought in the entire NFL, which nobody wants. Do you think we will play the Ravens and the Buccaneers at home? What's your prediction? So we already know where we're going to play our opponents. The Ravens and the Buccaneers will both be on the road. The NFL schedule is predetermined. It's rotating. We just have to settle when we're playing our opponents. That's what we're learning today. We've already known for several months out that we were playing the Ravens and the Buccaneers on the road. That's just that's the way that the NFL schedule has rotated this year. We play the entire AFC North. We play the Steelers and the Browns at home, and then we play the Bengals and the Ravens on the road. Ben says, I live here in Oregon. So happy we got Knicks. For sure, for sure. Are you going to be able to maybe make it up to Seattle for Bo Nix up in Seattle week 1? Maverick says, going to be interesting to play the Chiefs without the big losing streak to them. I know that pressure is going to be at least lifted from the Broncos, but it's still the Broncos versus the Chiefs, and they're still going to be big-time underdogs. What's your record prediction this year, Gage? Thank you so much, DTR, for the $10. I really, really appreciate it. Help keep the lights on here on Broncos Syndicate. I'm calling 10-7. We went 8-9 last year with 3 losses by 3 points or less. We will be going over that a little bit later on in the stream, just where I think the Denver Broncos sit right now and realistically what their record's going to be. We're going to pick each and every game, pick the wins, and see where we go from there. So that will be reserved for a little bit later on in the stream, but thank you so much, DTR, for the $10. I really, really appreciate it. As a Bronco, Jet, Knicks, and Nuggets fan, I'm excited for this year. That is an interesting combination, man. Love the show. Thank you so much, DTR. Really appreciate it. We need to sweep the Raiders. Absolutely. That's something that I know we're going to be looking for big time. And is there a cat outside?
It's our cat.
Oh, is it? Is it our cat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I just didn't know if there was a random cat outside that my cat's staring down. Anyway. We got North Cut Productions in the house saying, from Alaska, I'm looking to attend my first ever live game in week 12. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I love running into fans at games, and it's their first game that they've ever attended. It's an amazing experience that you have to really immerse and you have to take everything in. It's something that you can't really explain in words watching a football game live. It's awesome. Beat them at least once minimum, absolutely. Originally from New York, moved out here and fell in love with our teams out here. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love multi-regional fans like that. I love fans who maybe grew up in one place but have moved to another place and have embraced the local teams. I can totally get behind that. I can definitely get behind that. All right. It looks like we should be getting the schedule release video any moment here. Ooh. And my laptop was unplugged. We would not want that to die in the middle of the stream. That would absolutely suck. 6 o'clock. All right. I'm waiting for the Twitter notification from the Denver Broncos, and it looks like it's here. So we're going to go ahead and roll this. Oh, man. So it's got Sir Lewis Hamilton in there. He is part of it. All right, guys. Here we go.
That one definitely worked, man. What the hell is that? Work, man. What the hell is that? Oh, the texture.
It's not
The
fresh.
texture's so slimy. It looks like something you see in the Matrix when they. It's like what you'd imagine they have in prison as prison food. Yeah,
Oh my god.
that one really offended me. Zach.
All right, so there we go. Denver Broncos schedule release video. Not gonna lie, that one was a little bit disappointing. That one was disappointing in comparison to what they've done in previous years. I like that they got Lewis Hamilton involved, but oh man, I don't know. I think that they could have done a little bit better with that one. The menu theme is okay, but yeah, I don't know, man. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up the schedule here just so we can take a brief look at it. And then we will break down each and every individual game one by one, go over the key departures, key additions for each opponent. This is going to be a long stream, Broncos country, so hopefully you guys stick with me for this one. The Chargers went Sims themed. Okay, that's actually kind of cool. I'm glad that they deviated from the anime theme. I think the Broncos could have done a better job with that one. That one's one of their more underwhelming ones. But week 1, Seattle Seahawks on the road. Week 2, Pittsburgh Steelers at home, the Russell Wilson revenge game. Week 3, Buccaneers on the road. Week 4, Jets on the road. So 3 of our first games are on the road right there out of 4. Raiders at home week 5, Chargers at home week 6, Saints on the road Thursday night football week 7, Panthers at home week 8, Ravens on the road week 9, Chiefs on the road week 10. So really tough back-to-back games right there. Falcons at home week 11, Raiders on the road week 12, Browns at home week 13. Our bye week isn't until week 14. Oh, that Browns game is Monday Night Football, by the way. Week 15, Indianapolis Colts at home. 16, Chargers on the road. 17, Bengals on the road. And you can see that has the opportunity to be flexed in whatever given window. And then Chiefs at home week 18. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and break down each and every individual opponent for the Denver Broncos, starting with their very first opponent in the Seattle Seahawks, Week 1. It's the second time in 2 seasons that the Denver Broncos have faced the Seattle Seahawks in Week 1. Thankfully, this one is not on prime time, and this one is not Russell Wilson's return to Seattle. Seattle is always a tough place to play on its own just because of the environment, the 12s, the loudest stadium in the NFL. It's between them and Kansas City, but when you ask players, they will tell you that Seattle is in a league of its own just because of the way that the stadium is constructed and the way that it retains so much noise. Seattle is a super duper tough place to play no matter what. But this given year, they're going to have a lot of changes up there in the Pacific Northwest. The most notable one being Pete Carroll, their longtime head coach, is no longer in that position. Mike McDonald, the former Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, was hired to be Seattle's head coach, and he's somebody who comes with a defensive acumen. He's going to bring a very physical, aggressive, tough mentality to that football team. Not to say that it didn't have it with Pete Carroll, but Mike McDonald is going to bring that youth movement and that even more intense vigor to that Seattle defense. And I don't think that their defense is where most of their question marks lie. It's the offensive side of the ball, where Geno Smith kind of took a step back last year from his borderline MVP level play in 2022. Tyler Lockett's getting up there in age. DK Metcalf has been the subject of trade rumors. So Seattle does have some question marks on the offensive side of the ball with new offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, but I still expect them to be very, very sound defensively with Mike McDonald, their new head coach. So going over some of the key offensive addition or key offseason additions for the Seattle Seahawks: Jerome Baker, Tyrell Dodson, George Fant, Nick Harris, Jonathan Hankins, Rayshon Jenkins, Laken Tomlinson, Byron Murphy, and Christian Haynes. So they've made a bit of a movement to boost their offensive line and their defensive line. They added a really, really strong linebacker in Jerome Baker off of the Dolphins. They did lose some key pieces, though, in Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner at the linebacker position, as well as Devin Bush. So that's something that they're going to have to figure out a way to replace, and Jerome Baker is going to be one key piece of that puzzle. Will Dissly also gone, one of their starting tight ends. Noah Fant, the former Bronco, was given a contract extension out there. Mario Edwards, defensive lineman, is gone. Drew Lock is gone. He is now in New York. And then Bobby Wagner is gone. This is an opponent that, if the game were being played in Denver, I would feel more comfortable about it. But given the fact that we still have to go on the road to Seattle, I think that this might be an opening day loss for the Denver Broncos once again. But Denver is going to have that element of wanting to atone for their horrible, horrible start to the Russell Wilson era. This is almost like the rebirth of the Broncos in Seattle once again, and I think the Broncos maybe want to get off on the right foot this time, and kind of restart this with a different vibe and different energy to it. I'm kind of glad that the NFL gave us Seattle to restart our new era once again. Week 2, the game that I think everybody is looking forward to the most: Pittsburgh Steelers at home, the Russell Wilson revenge game. The Steelers are a team under Mike Tomlin that has never had a losing record. I think that could change this year with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields being their two quarterbacks. I think that both of them are quarterbacks who struggle to play within structure, in rhythm, on time. We saw that for the last 2 years in Denver with Russell Wilson, and I think Justin Fields has very similar issues to Russell Wilson in that regard. And I think that Steelers fans are going to have to temper their expectations a little bit coming into this in regards to what they're going to get quarterback play-wise. I still think defensively they're going to be a strong team, as always. They've added Patrick Queen. They've added Dante Jackson. They've added some weaponry for Russell Wilson, Quez Watkins. They added Roman Wilson, the wide receiver out of Michigan. They added Van Jefferson. They added Troy Fatano and Zach Frazier on the offensive line to give some protection for Russell Wilson. But as we saw in Denver, Russell Wilson's a quarterback who actually makes his offensive line look worse than they actually are. And then a couple more defensive additions in Deshaun Elliott and Dean Lowry. Their losses include Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Deontay Johnson, James Pierre, Chooks Corfor, Armon Watts, and Michael Walker. Only Dub says, I think Justin Fields is the Steelers' starter by week 2. I think the Steelers are going to give Russell Wilson at least the first half of the season, but if he's not performing well by that point, then I do believe we will see Justin Fields. Bronco fan says this will be a low-scoring game. I do agree with that. I think that defensively, Vance Joseph knows how to slow down Russell Wilson from his years defending him in Seattle, as well as going up against him in practice. I think that they're going to be able to exploit Russell Wilson's weaknesses. And of course, Russell's going to come into Denver very motivated. But I got a feeling this could go very similar to Russell Wilson's first return to his old team in Seattle. This could be a really bad loss for Russell Wilson, and not the greatest jump start to the Russell Wilson era with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do think this is going to be the Denver Broncos' first win at home, get that revenge, and set the tone for this season that the Denver Broncos are coming. Only Dub says 70-31 Pittsburgh. Week 3 is going to be a very tough road game for the Denver Broncos at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would have felt a lot better about this game if it were in December. Playing down in Florida in September is normally not a recipe for good news for the road team. Week 3 is when the Broncos played Miami last year, and the heat wasn't the reason why they lost, but it certainly didn't help matters. And I imagine that our team is going to go in there and really, really struggle to adapt to the humidity in particular, combined with the heat. Playing down there in Florida is extraordinarily difficult, and I would, again, feel a lot more comfortable about this if this game were later on in the year, say in October, November, December. Key off-season additions for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They extended Baker Mayfield. They extended Mike Evans. They extended Vita Vea. They extended Levante David. So kept some of their key guys intact. Added guys such as Randy Gregory. So this will be the Randy Gregory revenge game. Bryce Hall, Sua Opeta, Jordan Whitehead, Graham Barton in the draft to be their new starting center, and then Chris Braswell off the edge. They did lose some notable pieces to their core, though, in Shaq Barrett, Carlton Davis, and Devin White. Aaron Stinney was a starter for him the past couple of years, but they've upgraded that position with Graham Barton, and then Nick Leverett, a backup guard. Nothing really notable there. When it comes to Tampa Bay, they are a team, when they are hot, they are really hot. That connection with Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin is borderline unstoppable. They have some issues with their run game with Rachaad White that I do feel like need to get better, but I think with some of the additions that they've made on their offensive line, that's going to improve their run game overall. I do think that Tampa Bay is going to get us because it's in Tampa week 3. I question how well Denver's going to be conditioned. And it's hilarious that I talk about Tampa because I kid you not, literally right now, my boss, my friend who's a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan is calling me. Yeah, so again, I think that week 3 at Tampa Bay is going to be a really, really difficult one for the Denver Broncos, and I do anticipate this one is going to be a loss, so I have the Denver Broncos starting off the season 1-2. Week 4 is yet another revenge game. It's the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game, take 2. The New York Jets have made some really, really nice additions to bolster their core around Aaron Rodgers. The question is, will Aaron Rodgers be able to stay healthy, and will he perform at the same level that he performed pre-injury? I like their offensive addition, or their offseason additions. I really, really do. Hassan Reddick, Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, John Simpson. Olu Fashanu, they virtually rebuilt their entire offensive line. Isaiah Oliver at corner, the guy out of Colorado, is a good piece. Malachi Corley, another weapon for Aaron Rodgers. Mike Williams, if he can stay healthy, could be a good piece alongside Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard. I think that the New York Jets have a really, really strong set of pieces. It's just, can Aaron Rodgers stay healthy and perform well enough to get this team to meet its expectations? That is the big question mark right now for the New York Jets. As far as off-season losses, they did lose Laken Tomlinson, a starting guard, Mekhi Becton, starting tackle, and Jordan Whitehead, starting safety. Bryce Huff and Hassan Reddick, I'm basically calling that a lateral move. So the Jets, again, it's all going to be predicated on Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers is playing well, then I think this could also be a loss for the Denver Broncos. However, there's going to be this element of revenge for Sean Payton. He talked all that crap about the Jets and Nathaniel Hackett last year, and that game ended in a loss. I think Sean Payton is going to want to atone for it this year, and I think that this is going to be a win for Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. This is also the Zach Wilson and John Franklin Myers revenge game. I don't think Zach Wilson's going to see the field at all in this game. He's going to be just seeing his old teammates from the sidelines. But John Franklin Myers, just like DTR is saying here, this could very well be a game where John Franklin Myers gets some revenge against his old team, even though it ended on good terms. It's just to show them, hey man, you're missing out on a really good player here because you chose to pay Hassan Reddick instead of me. So yeah, tentatively, I have this as a win for the Denver Broncos, but it could very easily flip the other way, especially if Aaron Rodgers is playing at the top of his game. We got D-Rock in the house. Good to see you, man. Hopefully you are doing well. So week 5 is going to be just our second home game of the season, and that is against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders were second in the division last year, 8-9 in 2023, and after they started off completely off the rails with Josh McDaniels, they fired him and brought in Antonio Pierce as their interim head coach. Things kind of flipped for them in the back half of the season, and they nearly finished with a winning record. They beat the Chiefs in Kansas City on Christmas Day, and it was enough to convince the Raiders to give Antonio Pierce the full-time job. That and Max Crosby's threats of demanding a trade if he didn't get the full-time job. But regardless, this is Antonio Pierce's team full-time. The Antonio Pierce-led Raiders with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback beat the Denver Broncos in Week 18 of last year. The Raiders, I believe it's 16 straight games or whatever it is. The last time that the Denver Broncos beat the Raiders was December of 2019 when they were still the Oakland Raiders. It was the very last game in the existence of the Oakland Raiders. The Broncos have never beaten the Las Vegas Raiders. That has to change, and being at home is the best opportunity for this to happen. So, Week 5 versus Las Vegas, I think the Denver Broncos are going to have to come out firing. They should have beat the Raiders Week 1 of last year had Will Lutz not missed a field goal and an extra point. They would have. So I think that being at home, this is our best chance to win the Raiders, to beat the Raiders, excuse me. Some of their key offseason additions include Christian Wilkins at defensive tackle from the Miami Dolphins, a massive addition to their defensive line. If you can get some interior pressure and take some pressure off of Max Crosby, that is huge. Some of those double teams won't go to Max necessarily, and it will leave him with more one-on-one matchups. The addition of Christian Wilkins to that Raiders defensive line is something that should not go understated. That is huge when you have a good interior defensive lineman to pair with an elite edge rusher. Think about the stunts that you can set up. Just like with Von Miller and Derek Wolfe, this is what an addition of the caliber of Christian Wilkins can do for your defense. Gardner Minshew comes in. He's going to compete with Aiden O'Connell for the starting quarterback job. Minshew played quite well for the Indianapolis Colts last year after Anthony Richardson suffered a season-ending injury. and Minshew almost led the Colts to the playoffs. So I think Minshew is going to ultimately win the job, and we'll see how well he plays. Broncos fans will always remember week 4 of the 2019 season when Gardner Minshew came in. I believe it was the first road start of his NFL career, and he absolutely diced up the Denver Broncos. So, yeah, that's going to be one to watch, is how well Minshew plays for the Las Vegas Raiders. They brought in Alexander Madison, the former Vikings running back, to work in a tandem with Zamir White. Harrison Bryant, they brought him in, the tight end from the Cleveland Browns. And then Brock Bowers, of course, was drafted. So that's going to be a really, really nasty tight end room, especially if Michael Mayer is still there. He's been the subject of some trade rumors recently. So if Michael Mayer is still there, the Raiders could have a 3-headed monster at tight end. They brought in Cody Whitehair from the Bears, reunited him with his old offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. I don't think that Cody Whitehair at this point in his career is particularly starting caliber, so I think that this might be just a depth piece. They also brought in Jackson Powers Johnson. He's going to play guard for him. He was the center out of Oregon, Bo Nix's center, and I think that, it's been confirmed that he's going to be playing at guard. They called their center, Andre James, on draft night and told him, hey, listen, we're taking Jackson Powers Johnson, but he's going to be a guard. You're going to be our starting center. Notable departures, of course, Josh Jacobs. He's now with the Packers. The Raiders were able to consistently terrorize the Denver Broncos with Josh Jacobs in the backfield. I think Broncos country is collectively breathing a sigh of relief that he's gone. DTR with $5 more. Thank you so much, dude. I really, really appreciate you. We appreciate the effort doing a breakdown in each team along with this nice reveal. Gage, it's a nice touch. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really, really do. It really, really means a lot. We also have the Raiders losing Greg Van Roten. He was really, really good on the offensive line for him last year. He was their starting right guard and played his ass off. I cannot believe that the Raiders didn't bring him back. I believe he's actually still a free agent. The fact that Greg Van Roten didn't get a big extension from the Raiders is asinine to me. He was one of the best interior offensive linemen last year. Jermaine Illuminor was another loss for them. A swing tackle, not particularly a great player. Amik Robertson, Bilal Nichols, Austin Hooper, Jerry Tillery. Nothing else really noteworthy there. I think that since this game is at home and this is the best opportunity for the Denver Broncos to beat the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm going to give the Broncos a dub here. But again, they're going to have to take care of business. It's that simple. Week 6, Los Angeles Chargers at home. Very similar. The Chargers have really struggled in Denver in the Justin Herbert era. Justin Herbert has not won a game at Mile High in his entire career. I expect that to continue. This is year 1 of the Jim Harbaugh era for the Los Angeles Chargers, and I believe that they're going to have some struggles this season just because of their lack of weapons for Justin Herbert. They made some good additions on the offensive line, bringing in Bradley Bozeman to be their starting center, as well as drafting Joe Alt, number 5 overall. I do like those moves. They brought in Ladd McConkey in the second round, as well as DJ Chark. I really do like the McConkey move. It's also all going to depend on how well Quentin Johnston, their second-round pick from 2023, plays. If Johnston continues with his struggles from last season, with his drop issues, then that could spell big issues for this Chargers offense. They brought in some other former Baltimore Ravens as well in Gus Edwards and Hayden Hurst. They also brought in J.K. Dobbins. That's not listed amongst PFF's big additions, but if Dobbins can stay healthy, that's a really, really strong tandem of running backs. Replacing Austin Eckler there in the backfield. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, also gone from the Chargers. Kenneth Murray, Eric Kendricks, their 2 starting linebackers from last year. Will Clapp, Austin Johnson, and Gerald Everett, but they replaced Everett with Will Dissly, so kind of a lateral move there. And then Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, their 2 edge rushers, took pay cuts this offseason to remain in the fold, with the Chargers going under a bit of a cap crunch this year. I think this is going to be a good transition year for the Chargers, but I don't necessarily expect it to result in a whole lot of wins. They still have Justin Herbert, so anything is possible there. But yeah, anything's possible there if you have Justin Herbert, but I still feel like the Los Angeles Chargers are in for a little bit of a rebuild, reboot year. And I think that the Chargers' struggles in Denver under Justin Herbert are going to continue. So I got this one as a win for the Denver Broncos. Week 7, probably the second most anticipated game on the Broncos schedule. Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. It's going to be on Thursday Night Football. I think that the New Orleans crowd is going to be rocking and rolling for this one. They want to get that revenge. The way that Sean Payton left them and then came back to the NFL a year later, I think a lot of Saints fans hold some level of bitterness, especially with the way that the last couple of years have gone for them under Dennis Allen. They've got kind of a lame duck quarterback right now in Derek Carr, somebody who the Denver Broncos are very familiar with from his time in the AFC West with the Raiders. So I think this is going to be a matchup with a lot of familiar faces. Sean Payton knows Dennis Allen very well, and Dennis Allen knows Sean Payton very well. I think Sean has the upper hand, though, because he was the head coach back then. Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator. Sean knows almost every single in and out of Dennis Allen's defense and how to attack it. I think that this might be one where Sean Payton lets everything loose a little bit, because this is going to be a chess match between former protege or between pupil and student. This is going to be one where I think the fireworks are going to fly and Sean Payton's going to put a lot of points on the board. I have the Denver Broncos winning this one, but I could also see the New Orleans Saints taking it just because of the emotion, them wanting to beat their old head coach, the Superdome crowd behind them. I could very easily see the New Orleans Saints taking this one. I am glad that the NFL put this one on prime time. Week 8, we return home to face off against the worst team in the NFL last year, the Carolina Panthers. I do anticipate that the Carolina Panthers are going to be a little bit better this season with the addition of Dave Canales at head coach. They've added some weapons for Bryce Young, Jonathan Brooks at running back, Xavier Legette at wide receiver, Deontay Johnson in a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They brought in a couple of pieces on their offensive line in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. That's the typo right there. Thanks, PFF. But I also think that they're still going to have some struggles because of just Bryce Young having essentially a lost rookie season last year. I think this year is almost like the true rookie season for Bryce Young. There's going to be those growing pains this year for the Carolina Panthers. They've lost some of their stronger pieces on their team, such as Von Bell, Brian Burns, Dante Jackson, Frankie Louvu. Those are some really good pieces. I think that right now I have the Denver Broncos taking care of business pretty soundly. These are the games that you have to win if you're Denver, if you want to be taken seriously. You have to beat those opponents that on paper are worse than you. This can't be a trap game for the Denver Broncos. It simply can't. Sean Payton is going to want to play well in a game like this where, let's just be honest, the Carolina Panthers are a bad football team. I'm trying to beat around the bush, but the Carolina Panthers are a bad football team, and even if they get better next year, they're still going to be a bad football team. You've got to beat the bad football teams on your schedule. This is a bad football team. I can't beat around the bush, man. This is a bad football team, and you have to get the wins against bad football teams if you want to be taken seriously, especially when you have back-to-back daunting games on your schedule after that. Week 9 at Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens have lost some pieces. Patrick Queen, Jadeveon Clowney, Gus Edwards, Geno Stone, Morgan Moses, John Simpson, Kevin Zeitler, a lot of starting offensive linemen. Ronald Darby, the former Bronco, is also gone. But they added Derrick Henry. They added Roger Rosengarten, the Denver native, to atone for some of their losses on the offensive line. They got one of the best players in the entire draft in cornerback Nate Wiggins. They're still the Ravens, and it's still going to be on the road in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, MVP-level quarterback. I don't think that the Denver Broncos stand much of a chance in this one, but a lot of people didn't think the Broncos stood a chance going into Buffalo last year, and the Broncos pulled off that upset. I could see a very similar scenario here where Denver goes into Baltimore and pulls off an upset in a tough place to play. Playing in Baltimore is just completely daunting. You've got a ruckus crowd, you've got a marching band that's blasting noise in your ear. It's a daunting environment to play in. I wouldn't want to have to play there as a road opponent. I think the Denver Broncos do lose this game, but keep an eye on this one as the possible Buffalo game of this year where Denver pulls off that upset on the road. Just like DTR said, any given Sunday. Week 10, it's going to be another tough road game for the Denver Broncos. Kansas City. Oh, man. I really wish that the Broncos had given us, or that the NFL had given us the Chiefs games a little bit earlier in the season like they did last year. Kansas City, Week 6 and Week 8 was fantastic last year because we got that loss in Week 6 in Kansas City on Thursday Night Football, and then we were able to atone for it and do those quick adjustments in the game in Week 8, and I think that made a massive difference. So, going on the road to play Kansas City for the first time around in Week 10, with our next game against them not being until Week 18, I do have this one being a loss. At least the Broncos aren't going to have that pressure of getting another consecutive loss against the Chiefs, because right now we have a winning record in our previous matchups against the Chiefs. We're 1-0 in the most recent matchups in the current series against the Chiefs. The Broncos would like to extend it to 2-0, but again, the game being on the road in Kansas City, that's going to be a tough ask. Key offseason additions for the Chiefs include Hollywood Brown, Irv Smith as a backup tight end, Carson Wentz as a backup quarterback, and then they drafted Xavier Worthy and then Kingsley Suamataia. Both of those guys are expected to be starters, and Worthy in particular is going to have to step up with the question marks surrounding Rashee Rice. Rice is expected to be suspended for at least the first part of the season. There's even an indication that Rice could be suspended for the entire 2024 season with some of these new legal issues that have popped up. The NFL's not going to screw around with DUIs and stuff like that after the Henry Ruggs stuff. And right now, Rice's blood and urine samples are being kept under wraps, probably because they ended up being dirty. I'm just speculating there, but I don't know, man. I think there's a strong possibility Rashee Rice is not going to play next year, meaning Xavier Worthy is really going to have to step up. They also lost L'Jarius Sneed as a free agent to the Tennessee Titans. Donovan Smith, their starting left tackle from last year. That's why Kingsley's really going to have to step up. Willie Gay, who terrorized Denver for so many years, is finally out of the AFC West, but we still have to deal with him this year in New Orleans, which sucks. Mike Edwards is gone. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is gone. Nick Allegretti is gone. And then Rashee Rice is still, of course, up in the air. DTR says the rumor was Rice would be suspended for half of the season before he got the assault charge. The full season isn't out of the question. It's not. It's not. I think that they were going to be comparatively lenient on him and only give him half of the year before the assault charges. But now anything is possible with Rashee Rice. Since this game is in Kansas City, I've got this one as an L. A tough matchup for the Denver Broncos regardless. The Chiefs are still a young, strong team led by the best quarterback and the best head coach in football, throwing to the best tight end in the NFL. Tough matchup. I do think Denver gets one against Kansas City this year, much like last year. I just don't think it's this one. A little bit of spoiler for Week 18. Week 11, at home versus Atlanta. We are back home after that two-game road tilt. And with Atlanta, they made some nice additions, bringing in Kirk Cousins, but then they made the questionable moves in the draft, drafting Michael Penix Jr. in the first round, and then in the second round, they made another mistake, in my opinion, drafting Ruke Horo instead of Johnny Newton. And they still have a glaring need at edge rusher. The Falcons have some good weapons for Kirk Cousins. Bijan Robinson at running back. Drake London at wide receiver. They also brought in Darnell Mooney. Kyle Pitts at tight end, somebody you could also utilize in the wide receiver position, which is something that I hope the Falcons do with their new offensive coordinator. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he comes from the Sean McVay tree. I'm hoping that maybe Kyle Pitts finally gets utilized in the wide receiver role rather than trying to be forced to be a wide tight end, which just isn't his game at the NFL level. So, yeah, I really, really hope that the Falcons are able to maximize their weapons for the first time ever. It's still the Falcons, though, and there's always that level of, are they going to screw up? Kirk Cousins should be able to manage that offense well, but will Kirk Cousins still be healthy by this point? Will Kirk Cousins be playing well by this point? Was this group of weapons overhyped? There are just a lot of questions, I feel like, with the Atlanta Falcons. I like the addition of Kirk Cousins. I like the addition of Darnell Mooney. I like the addition of Ray McCloud, but their draft was so questionable. They still have a glaring need at edge rusher. I don't know, man. This one screams a win for the Denver Broncos, but just like Maverick said also, it could also scream a trap game. It just all depends on what direction the Atlanta Falcons are trending in at that point in the season. They're one of the biggest wild cards in the NFL, and that's what makes this game so hard to predict. Tentatively, I'm going to give it a win here for Denver, but that could very easily flip if Atlanta meets their potential and they are playing at the top of their game. If they are, then they could very easily come in here and play spoiler and win this game in Denver. Week 12 at Las Vegas. We already broke down the Raiders team, but this time it's going to be on the road. We've struggled on the road in Las Vegas. It's not really much of a home field advantage for the Raiders so much as Denver's just played so poorly in those games. I think that the Raiders will get one against us. I think Denver will break that streak, but since this one's in Las Vegas, I'm going to give this one to the Raiders. It could be flipped the other way around. I anticipate that the Denver Broncos will split with the Raiders this year. Week 13, our second scheduled primetime game for the Denver Broncos, and it's against the Cleveland Browns, the Jerry Jeudy revenge game on Monday Night Football. I'm really surprised that they put this one on primetime so late in the year. The Cleveland Browns are another one of those teams where it's so hard to predict. Not because so much of their roster, but because of one particular player, and that's Deshaun Watson. The Browns had the top defense in the NFL last year under Jim Schwartz, and they didn't really lose a whole lot of pieces on that defense, and if they did, they honestly upgraded those positions. So I still think Cleveland's defense is going to be as strong as ever. The question really is their offense. Will Deshaun Watson, A, be healthy, and B, return to the level of play he was at prior to all the drama off the field? I'm just trying to strictly on the field here. You guys probably know my opinions of Deshaun Watson off the field. I'm really trying to keep that out of this. But if the Browns are able to get a high level of play out of Deshaun Watson, or even a competent level of play out of Deshaun Watson, then I expect them to still be a really good team. There are also some question marks at the running back position when it comes to Nick Chubb. He suffered a gruesome knee injury last year where he destroyed almost every single ligament in his knee. So the Browns just have those question marks on offense right now. I like their their off-season additions. Jerry Jeudy, if he lives up to his potential, that's a big if, then that's a good weapon for the Browns offense. Quentin Jefferson and Jordan Hicks, some good defensive additions. Devin Bush, that's kind of a wild card. Whatever you get from him is house money. I like the draft picks of Michael Hall and Zach Zentner. They brought in Jameis Winston in the event that Deshaun Watson either gets injured or doesn't play well. There's a very strong possibility that Jameis Winston is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in this game. Notable departures for the Browns include Joe Flacco, who really stabilized that quarterback position for him last year. Anthony Walker, who they replaced with Jordan Hicks, so that's an upgrade for them. Sione Takitaki, who they replaced with Devin Bush. Again, lateral move to upgrade depending on how you view Devin Bush. Harrison Bryant gone, and then Nick Harris, their center, gone. I think that this is going to be a tough matchup for the Denver Broncos. If the Cleveland Browns play up to their potential, this is a loss for Denver. If they don't play up to their potential and they're kind of middling around like they were when the Denver Broncos played them last year, this is a resounding win for Denver. So right now, put it in the books as a loss. It's all going to depend on how well Deshaun Watson is playing at the end of the day. Week 15, Indianapolis Colts at home. Anthony Richardson is finally healthy for them. It remains to be seen if Richardson will be able to last a full-length season for them, though. This game being in Week 15 does at least open the possibility of Joe Flacco being the starting quarterback for this game, and this being a Joe Flacco revenge game. They didn't lose too many pieces. They lost Zach Moss and they lost Jake Martin. They added Raekwon Davis. They drafted Laiatu Latu, number 15 overall, and then they got Adonai Mitchell in the draft as well. This is a team that's all going to depend on how much Anthony Richardson plays this year and how well he plays. If he's able to stay healthy and if he plays like he did when he was on the field last year, then I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to win a lot of games. If not, then we could very well see Joe Flacco in there, and if Joe Flacco plays like the Joe Flacco we saw in Cleveland last year, this team will be fine, and they'll be much like they were with Gardner Minshew last year, probably competing for a playoff spot late in the year. If Joe Flacco plays like New York Jets or Denver Broncos Joe Flacco, then this team is in trouble. I think this is a win. This is another one, though, where we're just going to have to wait and see as the season goes on where the Indianapolis Colts and the Denver Broncos both are as football teams before we can make an accurate determination. This is why this is called the way too early schedule prediction video. Week 16 at Chargers already broke this team down. The game's in Los Angeles. I think the same streak is going to continue where we beat the Chargers at home, lose to them on the road. I think that is going to be the case here. Week 17 is a game that I'm kind of surprised that they put so late in the season, and that is at Cincinnati. With Week 17, the Bengals are expected to be competing for a playoff spot, possibly competing for the top seed in the AFC. You would have thought that they'd put them against a team like Kansas City or somebody like that later on in the season, since he plays KC early in the year. I actually would have thought that maybe Denver would have gotten Cincinnati earlier in the year and then Kansas City later on. It's a little shocking to me that Denver goes to Cincinnati at such a key point in the year for both of those teams. Tough ask for Denver to go on the road and beat a Bengals team when they are at full strength with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. They did lose Joe Mixon at running back this offseason, but I thought that he's kind of taken a step back in his production. They brought in Zach Moss from the Indianapolis Colts. They've got a couple of young running backs in that room as well, so if somebody can step up for them there. They brought in Trent Brown on the offensive line, who's going to really help out solidify that protection for Joe Burrow. Sheldon Rankins, who's going to replace DJ Reader for them. Mike Gesicki, he was brought in. He's going to replace Irv Smith. They brought in Geno Stone, the former Ravens safety, and then drafted Armarius Mims and Chris Jenkins on the defensive line. Some other notable losses include Jonah Williams, Chido Uzie, and Tyler Boyd. But this Bengals team, as long as they've got Joe Burrow, as long as they've got Jamar Chase, they're always going to be a tough team to face off against. Their defense is still really strong under defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. It's on the road. This smells like a loss to me. It does. So I think that Denver loses Week 17 on the road to the Cincinnati Bengals, especially if that Bengals team is healthy, at full strength, and looking to secure a top seed in the AFC playoffs. Finally, Week 18, Kansas City Chiefs at home. It's all going to depend on where the Chiefs are as a football team, if they're even going to play their starters in this game, if they've already locked up their playoff seedings. It could be just like the last couple of years for them where they don't play their starters in their regular season finale. We could see Carson Wentz starting his first game as a Kansas City Chief Week 18 in Denver. Or if the Chiefs struggle out the gate, if Xavier Worthy doesn't pan out, if they just have some issues and they need this week 18 game, Denver's got an opportunity to play spoiler for Kansas City. They really do. This also could be a game where Denver really, really needs to play their best football, because this could be a win and in type of game for the playoffs for Denver. I haven't counted my official win-losses yet. I'm going to do that right now. But if the Denver Broncos are in playoff position for this game, this could be a very, very critical game for them. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this in right here, and we will go ahead and do my official win-loss predictions for the Denver Broncos. Pick each game one by one. I'm going to pull up Epic Pen here, and I will write down dub or L next to each given team. Oh, go away. All right. So, Seattle Seahawks, week 1, on the road. We gave this one an L. Pittsburgh Steelers, week 2 at home. That's a dub. Bucks, L. Jets, I gave that one an L. Raiders, I gave that one a dub. So the Denver Broncos starting the season 2-3. Chargers, dub. Saints, oh, what did I say there? I think I said dub. Panthers, L. Or I'm sorry, Panthers, dub. Panthers, dub. Ravens, L. Chiefs, road, L. Falcons, dub. But that one has potential to go the other way. Raiders on the road, L. Browns at home, I gave that one an L. Colts, I gave a dub. Chargers, that's an L. L, dub. So I have the Denver Broncos winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. So I have this one as an 8-9 season for the Denver Broncos, missing out on the playoffs, another losing season for the Denver Broncos. But this does have very much potential to change. If the Broncos can get that win week 1 in Seattle, week 3 in Tampa Bay, week 4 in New York, they could flip it. If they could get an upset in Baltimore, an upset in Cincinnati, if they could sweep the Raiders or maybe sweep the Chargers, this has the potential to change. This Browns game is also a wild card. There's a reason why we call this the way too early record predictions for the Denver Broncos, but right now, my way too early record prediction for the Denver Broncos, 8-9, a good season overall in the first year of Bo Nix, but not good enough to get our first winning season since 2016, and not good enough to break the playoff drought. Let me know what you guys think the Denver Broncos' final record is going to be in the chat. I see a 7-9 from Maverick. I see a 9-7 from Bronco fan. 8-8 from King Pharaon. I see 8-9 from Maverick, or 8-9 from King Pharaon. 10-7 from Bronco fan. 10-7 from Joe. So yeah, I think that we're kind of all on the same page. Kind of anywhere from 8-9, 9-8, 10-7, somewhere in that territory. If Denver can catch a couple of lucky breaks, they could go all the way up maybe to 11-6. It just all depends on where they are as a football team and where some of their opponents are. All right, Broncos country, we are approaching the hour mark, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this stream here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it as we broke down the schedule release for the 2024 Denver Broncos. Before we dip out of here, if you could just do me a big favor, leave a like on this stream as well as subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. We are trying to hit 3,500 subscribers by the end of the month. I think that is very doable. We've gotten 300 subscribers over the last 2 weeks. I think it's very doable to get 200 over the next 2 weeks. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.